Silver Screen 7. Our film this week is the 1996 Witch movie, The Craft. So what is our Silver Screen 7 to tie in with that, Hawk?
We're pretty simple-minded folks, so we're going with top 7 witch movies.
All right. Yeah, I like it. Do you want to kick off your number 7 or you want me to kick it off?
I'll kick it off.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with Witches of Eastwick. I had read, this is one of those rare occasions where I had actually read the novel before.
Is that Updike?
It is. And I've read most of Updike. I went through a huge Updike phase, read like most of his works. And Witches of Eastwick is actually one of my lesser favorite Updike novels. And the movie, I like it. It's more I like the actors in it. It's a huge cast. It's Updike. Hollywooded up the book. Obviously.
It's not as sexual as the book. I read the book. The book is very highly sexual. It's a little tamer, I think.
All Updike's work is highly sexual. He's a fucking pervert, but in a sophisticated way. It's sexual in a sophisticated way. The movie,
because he did the Rabbit series, right?
Yeah, which I think is one of the greatest things ever written. Jack Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer, a couple more big names. I'm spacing it right now, but Witches of Eastwick, number 7.
Yeah, that was right on the cusp of making my list. It did not make my list, but it was close. My number 7 is the film that set the world on fire in the late 90s, and that's the Blair Witch Project. This was kind of there were other found footage films before this. I think of Cannibal Holocaust in the 80s. That was kind of like, I feel like Blair Witch took a lot of notes from that movie, but for this time, I mean, this kind of set that trend into high motion going into the 2000s. What was the movie that kind of borrowed that? Was it Cloverfield?
And then Paranormal Activities kind of doing it. There's this film series that I actually haven't seen. I think it's called Record.
Oh, yeah. REC.
And then I know there's the VHS horror anthology series where a few directors have been coming, like 3 directors will come and each do an anthology. And I think that's kind of, it's becoming a thing now. It's not as like Blair Witch Project, minds were blown because we hadn't really seen it.
Oh, yeah. And at the time, like, this was kind of prior to the internet really blowing up. So when this movie came out, they had a website attached to it. And the marketing behind the Blair Witch Project really blurred the lines of, is this legit or is this a movie? They were really playing up the fact that this was real. And I remember that being a big selling point to this film. Like, you got to go see it. And, so just the overall like marketing and distribution and push of this film was kind of second to none at the time. I think, they spent virtually no money to make it, and the movie made millions and millions and millions of dollars. So number 7, the Blair Witch Project.
It's a good movie. And the maker, Eduardo Sanchez, is also Kenny Powers' father. If you watch Eastbound and Down, if you remember that storyline.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. So my number 6, I'm going to go with Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And this isn't technically a witch movie. However,
I'm fucking calling bullshit on this one.
Here's why. It's the whole town thinks she's a witch and wants to burn her at the stake. So in my mind, that makes it a witch movie. I love the movie. And I think it works.
I'll give it to you. I mean, I guess I love Elvira, so it's hard for me to hate on Elvira, but not a witch movie.
It's a witch movie.
I think you're wrong about that.
The townspeople think she's a witch and want to burn her at the stake.
But we all know Elvira's not a witch.
I know, but the movie, they think she's a witch. It's a witch movie.
No, it's not a witch movie.
Yeah,
my number 6 is the 1990 film from Nicholas Roeg, The Witches. This was kind of like a dark fantasy comedy horror movie. I'm pretty sure it was like it's who's the guy that the author Roa, how do you say his name? Dahl, Dahl.
Roald Dahl.
Roald Dahl, yeah. It's based off of one of his novels. Fun movie, just a lot of fun. The witches were way over the top, seen as normal women. When they remove their faces, they look like horrible one of the best depictions of just horrible creatures for witches. Kind of a kid's movie too, a little bit. It's from a kid's perspective, and kind of a weird film for Nicholas Roeg, I think. Like, this guy's done some dark, twisted films. Go watch Bad Timing. Super dark shit going on in his movies. Don't Look Now, obviously, is his big one from the 70s. But for that guy to do kind of a dark fantasy children's film called The Witches, it was a total step out of what he's normally known for. But yeah, The Witches at number 6 for me.
I watched that a couple nights ago and for the first time, and it's not on my top 7. We'll say that. And this is actually my second Nicholas Roeg film in 2 weeks, because I watched Eureka not too long ago. And aside from Don't Look Now, man, I'm kind of indifferent to his work so far. I think I've seen 3 or 4 now, maybe.
Yeah, I guess he's not whimsical enough for you.
He's not. He tried to be whimsical with The Witches.
It kills me. Elvira, not a witch film, is at your number 6, and you're saying The Witches doesn't deserve to be in a top 7.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I said it.
Ugh. All right. So,
where are we at? Are we at my number 5? Or I did Witches of Eastwick. You did Blair Witch. I did Elvira. You did
The Witches.
So it's me at my number 5.
Right.
All right. I'm going to go with, and maybe I'll get pushed back on this one too, but I just watched this, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. What do you think? Which movie?
Which movie? No. Is there a witch in it? Yes. I mean, I get you could. I'll let you have that. I do love the animation of the witch. One of the most iconic witch it's a true witch to me. The animated version of a witch.
This was the first time I'd seen Snow White, probably definitely since VHS as a kid. When you watch it on a Blu-ray, the animation it's flawless. We perfected animation in the 30s.
Right.
And then everything else is almost, because I see animation today, kids' cartoons and shit, and it sucks to me. It's just not good. But Snow White, God, it's so perfect, so crisp and clean and just flawless. And it's just really tough to say that movie's not a masterpiece just for what you're seeing on screen.
That image of that witch with the apple is burned into my childhood. Like, I think that was one of the first images I can remember from like a cartoon aspect of terrifying me as a child.
And you could argue that because of the way the witch looked in Snow White, that's why Angelica Houston and all those witches look like they did in Witches by Nicholas Roeg. It's almost like that image in Snow White is it's like Frankenstein. The book doesn't describe Frankenstein, so Universal had to create what it looked like, and now everybody associates what Frankenstein looks like.
Yeah, it set the tone. It set the tone for witches.
Yeah, so I think that's probably true, and that's why it's on the list.
Number 5 for me is the film we're talking about tonight, The Craft. I won't go into anything. Stick around for our big deep dive into The Craft to hear my take on it, but I have The Craft at number 5.
All right, my number 4, I'm going to go with Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, because it's the original, but I think part 3 is the best in the series, The Prisoner of Azkaban, but I figured since the first one, is the one that set it all up. I actually like the movie. Some of them are kind of long and not good, but I like the franchise in general, and I love the world it sets up. And so I think Harry Potter deserves a spot on the list. I'm going to go with the first one.
I don't mind the series. I enjoy the series. How the fuck is Harry Potter a witch film?
All the girls in the movie are fucking witches.
They're wizards.
No, like Hermione and them, they're all fucking witches. All the girls are witches. The boys are wizards.
They're all wizards. We're splitting hairs here. I mean,
isn't it Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry or some bullshit?
I guess. I mean, come on. But I don't think when I think witch, I don't think Hermione from Harry Potter. I mean, come on, dude.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get the list of rules before I made my list. From now on, when we figure it up, Chad, I need your list of 10 rules.
We need to fucking
follow.
put some caveats in here because you're taking liberties right now.
You're like, all right, what's the Silver Screen 7 witch movies? And then it's like, all right, well, here's the 10 rules you have to follow while compiling that list.
yeah. I don't know. I do like those movies. I think they're great children's films. I guess, yeah, you kind of owned me with the School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, but I just don't think of Harry Potter as a witchcraft, like a witch film, but to each his own, I guess. You got fucking Elvira on the list, so.
I've made my point on all of them.
Number 4 for me, the recent film, The Witch. I think this movie's highly underrated. I think a lot of people, especially casual movie viewers, it was probably slow. It was probably boring. It was probably, there's not enough witch. Well, Blair Witch didn't have a fucking witch in it either. Like, let's be honest here. There was no witch in the Blair Witch Project. So I love the tone of this movie. I love that the filmmaker kind of really made a world. It feels like that era when, when you're in a little village, the pilgrims, post pilgrim moving into this untamed world in America. If you get banished from your village to go live in the wilderness, you're fucked. And it had a lot of that Puritan religion and the fear of the unknown, the fear of the devil. I love this movie. I think it's, I think it's underappreciated, honestly. Like, Robert Eggers is the guy who directed it. He also did The Lighthouse. Very stylized, the guy has an eye. He has his own style, but yeah, The Witch at number 4.
I didn't hate it. I just didn't understand The Witch. At the end, I didn't quite understand what I was supposed to be getting. I didn't understand the twist or whatever you want to call it.
She was joining.
Okay, I'll have to watch it again. Maybe I'm going to get into some newer horror films this Halloween season. I'm always watching 80s and shit, slashers. I bought like Paranormal Activity and shit. I've never watched it. I've never seen that movie.
Paranormal Activity?
Yeah.
It's pretty good for what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to get into some of these 90s franchises. Paranormal Activity.
That's like 2000s, but yeah.
That's what I mean, the 2000s. And like The Purge.
Never got into The Purge.
I haven't seen one of them, so I might give them a shot. Next on my list, number 3 is tonight's film, The Craft. We're going to talk about it, so we'll move on.
All right. Number 3 for me is the Mario Bava film, Black Sunday. Classic, iconic. Mario Bava. If you're a horror fan and you haven't dove into his films, I mean, Black Sabbath, Black Sunday, a lot of his stuff, everyone thinks of Italian horror. A lot of people go to Lucio Fulci, they go to Dario Argento, but the guy who kind of set the groundwork for Italian horror is Mario Bava. So I have Black Sunday, very moody, very atmospheric, classic black and white horror film, Black Sunday, Mario Bava, number 3.
Not to be confused with the Frankenheimer film
No,
where they're
the
trying to
terrorist, the
blowing up the Super Bowl.
the fucking Zeppelin,
Yeah. We watched
the
both of
good, the
those for
blimp.
the yeah, we watched both of those for the movie club, if you remember, in
Yep.
pretty close succession.
Yeah.
All right, so my number 2, I'm gonna go with Suspiria, the Dario
Mm.
Argento 70s film. The whole school's ran by witches.
Well, yeah, that's a classic. I mean, I love that film. Very, very one of the most stylistic horror films ever made, I think.
In soundtrack, Goblins.
Goblin, yeah, Goblin, great, great soundtrack. My number 2, which I think is going to give us some debate here because it wasn't on your list. My number 2 is the Disney film Hocus Pocus. I think this is like they've summed up all of the stereotypes of witches, and there's a goofy quality to it. Sarah Jessica Parker, Bette Midler, and the other broad, they're over the top, they're silly, but it's like it hits all those just cornerstone, touchstone moments for like witches. You've got the black cat, you've got the spells, the big black cauldron, the kick-ass witch hut out in the middle of the woods, the being banished for centuries and then coming back in modern day. You've got an incredible location. It takes place and it was shot in Salem, Massachusetts. The vibe of this movie is one of the most October vibe films you can watch. The autumn leaves, the Salem, Massachusetts location. It's fun. It's a fun kids movie. Plenty of trick or treating going on. It just the overall tone of this movie. I love Hocus Pocus. I think it's a sleeper kids film for sure.
I love the tone and the vibe of it. I just think the movie itself's not amazing, but it's fun. I had a fun time watching it. However, I didn't know this, but Hocus Pocus is now a cult film.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
I went into Spirit Halloween, and there's a whole section dedicated to Hocus Pocus. So the 3 movies that seem to have gotten cult status among this generation, Beetlejuice, there's always a Beetlejuice section, Hocus Pocus, and the movie Trick or Treat. If you remember that film.
Oh yeah.
The anthology series with the little like scarecrow.
I think that movie's overrated.
I like a couple of the vignettes, a couple of them suck, but anyway, it's still become, those are the 3 films that's become cult classics. So Hocus Pocus for some reason is standing the test of time. I like it. It's just not in my top 7.
I always thought like, and me and one of our friends have kind of been developing a screenplay for a TV series that's based off of a few of my feature length screenplays. I kind of combined them all, but I always thought a very mean, hard adult version of Hocus Pocus would be incredible. Like if you took how they do that movie, but take out all the family fun shit, the comedy, and make it like raise the stakes. I just love the story they're telling. And it's from a child's perspective. It's a family film, but man, they hit all of those notes that I just want in a witch movie that I don't feel like we've ever got in a serious witch film. Every witch film we get, like Blair Witch or The Witch, it's all very subtle. And Hocus Pocus is right up in your face. And I love that, but we've never got that with a real serious witch film.
Well, that's what I realized as I'm compiling my list, looking up witch movies and stuff. And I realized we don't have the definitive witch movie.
No,
not even one you can debate, because werewolves, we have it. You can debate which one it is. American Werewolf in London, vampires. You could debate which one is the definitive one. But there's the films there you can debate. I don't think in witch movies there's this, like even number 1 on my list, which I'll just go to it since it's my turn while we're talking, is the Blair Witch Project. For reasons, I saw it in the theater, and it was that time when it was blurring the lines of reality and real life. It was when I started watching movies as an adult and getting into them.
Right.
Love Halloween. Love the vibe of it. I think it's creepy as fuck.
It is.
And I watch it about every year, but there's no witch in it. So you can't call it the definitive witch movie. So, and even Eggers the Witch, it's good. You like it, but it's not the movie like, oh, that's the definitive witch
You
movie.
barely see the witch.
Yeah.
Like, I love that movie, but if we really want to, like, we don't have that movie where the witch is this front and center, fearful foe. Like, you don't have that.
Yeah. So what you're having the works, there's a market for it. So, go for it.
Yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed somebody likes it.
But yeah, my number one's the Blair Witch for every reason I just said. I think it's fucking amazing.
The most iconic
movie.
scene in the Blair Witch Project for me is the last shot when the guy's just staring at the brick wall. There was something so terrifying about that.
I'm with you. It is, but the most iconic scene is when Heather's in the tent crying into the camera.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was the one that was always the big one when you were seeing the trailers and shit.
Yeah. She killed it.
She did.
My number one, which was already mentioned on your list, Suspiria, Dario Argento. Again, though, just to go to our point, there's witches in that movie, but you got to know what's going on to know this is a witch movie. Like, you have to really know. It's not something that they push up in front of you that it's, hey, these are witches. But there's something witchy about it. I don't know, man. That movie has a vibe all its own. I don't think it's ever been duplicated. Like the tone and the feeling you get from Suspiria.
It's a creepy fucking movie. With the color palette he uses, soundtrack, it all comes together.
Everything. And the deaths in it are crazy.
And
but
also
I have Suspiria, you have Blair Witch Project.
Yeah. And that's also Argento's best movie, in my opinion. Suspiria.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Deep Red a lot, but that's his magnum opus, I guess.